Hello everyone, welcome to our monthly live stream. This month we are going to talk about data analysis with Power BI. We're going to look at budget versus actual data, some finance data, and then get into it. Before we jump into anything else, let me know in the chat if you can hear me loud and clear. All right. I just did an audio test myself as well. And it looks like the audio is all good. And let's get started. First of all, a very nice and warm welcome to all of you from whichever part of the world you're tuning in. I've got an amazing session planned for you where we're going to look at an entire spectrum of data analysis with Power BI, right from getting the data, doing some transformations, calculating things, and visualizing and all of that. And this is going to be interesting, and it is inspired from one of the actually couple of training programs that I ran in the last 3 or 4 months for finance teams in various organizations. So I thought, I'll take some of those concepts and shrink them into a shorter format and present them in this masterclass. All right. Let's just put a welcome banner on the screen and let's get this show started. Those of you who are joining this live stream for the first time on my channel, just a couple of quick notes and then of course obviously a big welcome to everyone who is joining back again for this month's show. The number one thing is most of the times when I do a live stream, there is a sample data set that I use. Every time it changes, but if you expand the video description, you should be able to find that files. So for this stream, I have got 2 files. Both of these are CSVs. If you are following along, you don't really have to download them. I want you to make a note of the URL so that we can use the web connector when we are using Power BI to bring the data. But feel free to download the data as well. And when the stream finishes, I would have built a Power BI workbook on my computer. I will upload that. So you can always check back in a day or 2 for that copy. But if you're following along, you would have constructed something similar on your own. Let's just see who is here. Today we have got about 250 people on the thing. And I'm getting a lot of hello messages. Valerie says, this is the highlight of my day. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much, Valerie, for joining me. I really appreciate you as well. Tej puts a message in Telugu. Hello, Chandoo garu. Hello, Tej. Bonawa. Pooja says, hello. Hello, Pooja. Amol says hello. And Abhinash says where we can download the worksheet. So on YouTube, where you're watching this video, expand the video description and you will see the links. Now, unless you're one of those people who have logged on to the live stream page like 35 minutes before the start, in that case, you just need to refresh it. But if you have started watching this right now by going to YouTube, when you expand, you should see the file links there. Hello, sir. Thanks for this platform. Hello, Shankar. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. We have got a Segun. Hi, Chandoo. I'm from Nigeria and a fan. Thank you, Segun, for that. And Mafazal Hussain from Bangladesh with a lot of hearts. And yay, I want to also share this news. Like, this is something that you couldn't time it any better. When I went to sleep last night, we were on 299,000 odd subscribers. And when I woke up today morning, guess what we have? We have 300,000 subscribers. So I want to, I was like, yay, this happened on the live stream day. What are the odds of that? So I want to celebrate that happy news with you all, share that, and thank you personally who are tuning into the stream, that we have got 300,000 subscribers on the channel, and yay. So I made something really silly to kind of celebrate this. I was gonna post it on the social media, Twitter, and YouTube community and all of that later. But briefly, I'm gonna share that on the screen as well. So that's the file. Hide that. So this is what I made, and yeah. All right, so that's the celebration for 300,000, and if you're one of those subscribers that added up to that number, thank you. And if you have never subscribed to my channel but you do watch it and you like what I do, feel free to subscribe or like or share or whatever. I was watching some other video the other day, and because many times when you see YouTube videos, people always say, click like, share, subscribe, enable notifications, this, that. So he kind of concluded by saying, just click on every button, whatever button you see anywhere on the internet, just click on it, because literally that's what it sounds like. So yeah, that's that. And all right, let's just get into the action. MS says how to use Power BI on Mac. I don't really know. I don't have a Mac. I'm not even sure if Microsoft has plans for this. You can probably put if anyone else uses Mac and then have figured out a way to get Power BI there. I feel like parts of it are available. The easiest would be to build some of the bigger reporting work in the PC environment, but on Mac you can always go to powerbi.com and then make simple edits or see everything on the online platform, because that's all online. But I don't know if the desktop application, if they have any plan for that. And I want to give a shout out to Mrityunjay for a super sticker. Thank you, Mrityunjay, for that. And all right, so there's so many messages, but I thought we'll get into a topical message. So as I get started, let me know in the chat, what are you drinking? I've just made myself a cup of coffee, as well as I got myself a cup of water here. And let's get started. My voice sounds a little bit funny because it's springtime here in New Zealand, and well, spring is really a beautiful time. All the flowers are blossoming and all of that. Ever since moving to New Zealand, I have over time developed a really bad hay fever. So spring means the first few weeks of spring for me means, oh my god, I might have some allergies and nasal congestion and all of that. So if I sound funny, that's because of that. I try to have some spray, but sometimes it doesn't really have any impact. Anyhow, we will get into Power BI. I hope you have grabbed the files if you're following along. If you're just here to watch me explain and take some notes, that is all good as well. Like I mentioned, this month's live stream, we are going to look at budget versus actual data, and then kind of compare how to do this kind of comparison within Power BI. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the themes and all of that? So to guide us in the process, I have got a analysis themes thing. So these are the analysis themes that we will try to address as the stream progresses. So my plan is to kind of address these 5 points with the given data set in about next 75 to 90 minutes. All right. But if we can't finish all the 5, that is still fine. We will go as far as we need to go, and then at that point we will stop. Obviously, we'll need to do before even getting into the analysis, we need to do data modeling, we need to do transformations and all of that. So those will happen, and then we will get into this. So the 5 themes are actual performance by product, person, and team, variance analysis at a person level, who has most variance in each month, which products have highest profit per box, and forecasting sales for the next 3 months. So that's that. All right, let's just see what everybody is having. Clean this MTS says Fredo cappuccino. Nofi is having water. That's cool. And then Claire is having just finished a green tea with a slice of lemon. Welcome back, Claire. And quite a few people are having water. Of course, water is always good, but as I said, this is early morning. It's 5 a.m. here in New Zealand. So for me, 5 means, yeah, it's already coffee time. And yeah, quite a few people are having cappuccinos. Just Fast is having a beer. Well, cheers. I was out with some of my friends here last night, and yeah, we all had not a lot, but we had a few drinks, and then came back and had a quiet night actually. Rajita says your videos are informative. Thank you, Rajita. And Claire says Potakawa blossom. Yeah, it's not just Potakawa. There's a lot of pine trees and all sorts of stuff here. And obviously, we live in a kind of like surrounded by a lot of farms, not our farms, but there's just lots of cattle farms nearby. So there's a lot of grass and a lot of pollen from the grass as well. Shashank says this weekend, right? Beer is right choice. Well, and Tej says, Chandugar, I have more than 30 tables in my report. I'm facing difficulty data modeling. Make a video on data modeling with huge data. Sure, Tej, for that suggestion and the sticker. I'm gonna keep that in mind when I talk about some of the things today, as well as we'll address some of these in future videos as well. Okay, so let's get into Power BI. This is actually kind of like the file that I'm showing on the screen is most of the data modeling and cleanup is done. We'll start from scratch, so that way you will see the whole process. So I'll open a file new and then open the blank Power BI workbook. So this is where we are gonna kind of get into the whole thing. And then cancel this out. We'll start from here, and I'm gonna turn off my ticker as well. Just a reminder, you can grab the files. The source data files for this live stream are in the video description. And if you're watching it during the replay, you can just expand the video description. The files will be there. So as we make progress, I'll check the chat from time to time just to see if you have any questions. If your questions are related to what I'm doing, I'll try to address them as much as possible. But if you have got any other questions, while you're more than welcome to put them in the chat, I may not address them at all, simply because that'll just derail the whole thing and take us into some tangents that nobody wants. So please post questions, but stick to the topic on hand, which is doing some data analysis with Power BI. So open the blank Power BI desktop. I'm using whatever is the latest version of Power BI, but whatever I'm explaining, you should be able to follow along in pretty much any modern version of Power BI for that matter. So for the sake of this exercise, I have got 2 CSV files. I'll quickly show them to you, and then we will load them up here. That way you know exactly what data sets we are working with. So this is for our Awesome Chocolates company. This is a fictional company that I use in all my videos and examples. At least I try to. We sell chocolates. So I have got some actual sales data of Awesome Chocolates in the last 13 months. So I know what happened from 1st of August 2021 up until August of 2022. So all that 13 months worth of data. This is in a CSV format. So it's basically downloaded from our enterprise systems and put it into the CSV format here. So this 5 or 6 columns, you have got salesperson, product, date on which the shipment or sales happened, how much is the amount, how many boxes we sold in that transaction, what is the expenditure, which category and team that data belongs to. Then it just goes on. It's not much of data. We have got about 3,700 rows because it's already aggregated at a person product level. We don't have individual line items. It's moved up by date, person, product. So that's the data. Like you can see here, I have got sales and expenditure. So we can do some additional analysis like calculate profit, which would be sales minus expenditure, or do percentage analysis like what is our profitability ratio or what is our expense ratio, etc. So this is the actual data. We also have targets within Awesome Chocolate. So a target file has been shared with us for this analysis. This is how the target file looks like. So within the target file, the targets are not defined at the same granularity. When we are having actuals, we know exactly how each person on each day for each product, what is their information is. But when it comes to targets, we just have monthly targets for our team. So every person in our sales team has a monthly amount that they must meet. So for example, here, Andrea Kimpton, their target is $40,350 for the August 2021. Like that, we have got all these targets. We also have blanks here for the future months where the targets have not been defined. Of course, right now, officially, September is ended here in New Zealand. But, you know, if and when this information is available, it will be updated and you will get the updated file. That's really the idea here. Like you can see, this data format is a different format. So it also creates some problems for us when we are trying to combine everything and analyze. Given the data set here, what it also opens up is, it is now, what we are working with is, we are working with 2 fact tables. Fact table or number tables are the tables where information is maintained. And you know, there is other type of table called dimension table where we explain the information about certain aspects of the data. So here I have got 2 fact tables, and this is one of the common features when you are doing any kind of actual versus budget analysis within Power BI or any other tool for that matter. So the modeling needs to be a little bit more nuanced with these things because there is also granularity differences here. I hope all of this makes sense, but you know, that's a little bit about the data. Let me see if if anyone has any serious questions. Otherwise, I'll continue the discussion. Philip, one of our regulars on the live stream, says, one day I look forward to meeting Bar Fawny. I was looking at some of you might have already seen this. There is a new technology where you can put some random words, not random, some prompts into an artificial intelligence engine. I think it's called DALI or something, and it'll make up an artwork for you. So maybe eventually, once there is enough volume of data around Bar Fawny on the internet, we can just put Bar Fawny there, and DALI can actually make up a face for them. Because he's a made-up person, he doesn't exist anywhere, or maybe there is a real-world Bar Fawny somewhere. All right. We do have some stickers to just shout out to. Adams. Whoa! Look whose this is. This is the guy in a cube. Always great to see you do something with Power BI. Thank you, Adam. This is really awesome. And those of you who are not familiar, obviously you must be living under a rock. But if you're not familiar with guy in a cube, They do amazing work with Power BI, and upload lots of content, do live streams, everything on Power BI. And Adam has been a good friend and a mentor as well. When I had some doubts and questions, I have emailed him previously, and he was kind enough to reply back. This is just awesome. Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much, and it's good to have you here. All right, so let's get into the actual stuff here. So we have our file, and now let's load up the data sets here. So we could use the import data from Excel. Technically, these are not Excel files, they're CSV files. So you're looking at get data text/CSV. But you could also, if you don't want to download the files, you can use the web URL and load that up. So if you put web and then you just paste those URLs there, that'll also work. I'm just going to use CSV simply because the files are already on my computer, so it's easier for me that way. So these are the two files. So I'm going to pick actuals, open, and then the actual data is kind of reasonably formatted. Everything is there, so we don't need to do any transformations right now. So I'm just going to load it up straight away. But we do need to go into Power Query to edit stuff for the other thing. So we'll load this, and then we go get. So this is gonna take a while to load it, and then once that thing is loaded, it will show up here on this side. So let's go and load the other one as well. Targets, open. Now you can clearly see here that for the targets thing, it already messed up. The column headers are wrong because Power BI, or in this case technically Power Query, couldn't figure out that this is the column because of the way our data is structured. So this is really not going to work. So we do need to do the transform data option here anyway. So we will use the transform data and get into Power BI. So this is, if this is your very first time doing anything within the space of Power Query, then consider this as like a very brief introduction to Power Query, but I'm not going to go into most of the technical stuff at all, simply because that would be a whole another live stream in itself. So instead, what we are going to do is we will understand how to solve the problems for this data with Power Query. Along with, if there is something interesting or useful I'm doing within Power Query, I will explain, this is how that works. But if you've not familiarized yourself with Power Query, there are some excellent videos on my channel or elsewhere on the internet, including Guy in a Cube. You can go and search it up and then, learn Power Query a little bit more. And if you're thinking there is so much to learn, what should I focus on, especially in the space of Power BI, then I highly recommend investing significant amount of time in Power Query first, simply because that will help you get more out of your data. Power Query is the kind of like a data cleaning, data crunching engine of Power BI. So the more Power Query you know, the better you will be able to handle your data. So let's transform this data. And while we are here, I'm also going to hide my face simply because that just comes in the way of things. But I'll show you my face. There is no robotic voice or anything coming up anywhere. And later. So here within Power Query, we have got actuals and targets. In order for us to work with this data and answer some of the questions that we set ourselves to, we do need to create some other tables. Basically, some dimensions need to be derived from this. That will simplify the modeling process for us. We'll do that later, but for now, let's just clean up this data. So if you see here, the column headers are all wrong. So I'm gonna take this row number 1 and make that the headings for this particular table. To do that, you will go to Home, And here is the use first row as headers option. So just tap on that. That will basically take the first row and promote that into the headers, and you will get nice headings there. Next up, if you see this table, this formatting is a bit clunky because you have got person and then for each month its own column. While this is a good format to maintain the data, this format actually means working with the data for analysis purpose a lot more painful. So what we could do instead of this is take this data and then restructure it into a 3-column table. The 3-column table would pretty much look like this. So if you have, just imagine this as a white sheet of paper, you will have 3 columns. Column 1 will be SP, column 2 will be month, and column 3 will be value. Value will be target. So this kind of a format would be super awesome to work with and ask questions and get answers or compare things. Whereas this kind of a format, it's easy to maintain, but it is a pain to work with. So to do that, whatever column you want to keep, so we want to keep the salesperson column. We don't want any of these columns there. Instead, we want them to be kind of transformed or unpivoted. That operation is called unpivoting. So whatever column you want to keep, you will use that, right click on that column and then go all the way here. You will have unpivot other columns option. So that's the option that you're using. There's a bunch of unpivots there. Normally in this case, because we know what we want to keep and whatever needs to be unpivoted, there could be more of those columns. Using unpivot other columns would be a safer option because there's always going to be a salesperson, and the targets thing can have any number of columns after that and it works. So to get here, right click on the first thing, the person column, and then unpivot other columns, and that'll basically turn this into a 3-column table. Salesperson attribute value. Attribute would be your month and value is the value. So I'll double click on the attribute to rename it to month. Double click on the value and then rename it to target. So now our table is better. Next thing is we will also do a little bit of data type conversion, understand exactly how that works. So I have got org21, sep21 like that. And I want to turn this into a date. We'll try the default options first. If it doesn't work, we'll have to do something else. So right click on the month, change type, date. It seemed to have done something, but if I observe closely, you see that org21 has become August 21 of 2022, September 21 of 2022. October 21 of 2022. Now this may not be exactly how Power Query will read your dates if you have got a different locale. Right now I'm using English US locale. So with that locale, Power BI thinks this is how those dates are. So I'm going to undo these steps. There is no way to undo these things in the UI. All you have to do is look at the steps here and then kind of delete the steps that you don't want. So we delete that change a data type step. So we go back here. And some of this confusion seems to come from the fact that we only have month and year here, two-letter here. So you see this org21 is what we have. We don't have any starting date. So it would be a lot better if the date actually says 1-org21. That'll basically nudge Power Query in the right direction, thinking, telling it that, this is a day, month, year format. If just saying org21, it's kind of making an assumption what the 21 is. It could be date, it could be year and all of that. So to fix this, there's multiple ways to do this. I'll show you my preferred way, or the way I have done it in the other file, which is select this month column, go to transform, and if you go to format, you can add a prefix or a suffix to any value. So a prefix would be something that adds before. So I will add a prefix that simply says 1-. This will put 1 August 21, 1 September 21. So it will put the first date at the start and then make that. At this point, if I try the change type date, that should do the correct data type conversion, date conversion for all of our data, and then that works fine. All right, that's good. We will change this one to a whole number. We don't have any decimal values in the target value. And our targets table looks nice and clean. Our actuals table also looks nice and clean. At this point, the basic necessary steps for our data is done. But the problem is, while this data is there, we cannot actually connect them. This is because while Power BI can connect many to many, it can open a lot of unnecessary headaches and cans of worms when you are trying to model and filter things on the screen. So simply put, there is no table where any column is uniquely maintained. So if I have got bar funny on actuals and bar funny on the targets, we can't really connect them because there's many times these names have repeated on both tables. So we don't know exactly which bar funny here maps out to which target column there. So these two tables are like hard to match. But if I have introduced two more tables in the middle, one is a salesperson table and another is a date table, and then map these things out, then it makes sense. So this is a little bit like in real world, you would do it. You will try to figure out, oh, this is not going to work, and then go back and add these tables. But in a live stream class kind of like this, I don't want to waste time doing those false starts. So we will go and build those tables. But if the table construction doesn't make sense, feel free to ignore that and try to solve the problem yourself. And then you will realize why those tables will be required later on. So we will go and build them. Normally, you may be able to import such dimension tables from other systems as well, but Awesome Chocolates is a very really yummy chocolates, but they're all made up. So none of this exists. So we have to create everything. And I see Adam has been answering lots of questions in the chat. I'm going to join in on the conversation a little bit just to see what is going on. I suppose this is regarding someone asking how much SQL do I need if I want to learn Power BI kind of a thing. Like Adam says, you don't really need much SQL. I happen to know SQL simply because I learned SQL all the way back in college days when I was learning how to program. But many people who use Power BI, they don't really use SQL that much. Power BI also has an amazing option called query folding, where it can generate SQL for you depending on what you're trying to do. That said, sometimes learning it could be like it'll give you like another option. But if you don't want to learn or don't have time to learn, you don't need to learn it. You can always learn things as you grow in your career, because once you know how to use Power Query, then you don't need to spend time learning Power Query. So your time frees up, but you still have those skills. You will use them. So you can use that time to learn SQL or programming or data visualization, communication, whatever really you want to do. So yeah, don't stress out. If you've got one way to go there, just start using that way and then slowly add other routes to your thing. So if you have got any questions like, wait a sec, how did you do this bit in the video where I was explaining? You don't need to ask that. You can always pause the video and then go back few minutes and it should be able to see. Or you can always kind of make a note in your notepad or whatever you're using to take notes about the timestamp, and then later on when the video is available for rewind and watch, you can always go back and see those steps. I don't just want to stop and repeat all the steps because that'll just take even more. Like we are already 35 minutes and we are still cleaning the tables. So I just want to kind of be mindful about that as well. Lisette says, is it best practice to transform the data in this similar format by person, month, or year value? A lot of what you would do in the transformation stage really depends on what your analysis goals are. So there is no best format like, you do this and then everything will work kind of a thing. Most of the time when I'm doing these transformation steps, I'm really guided by what is it that I immediately need, or what is it I could potentially see as my analysis needs. So sometimes I would say analyzing, in this case we have defined variance analysis, but it could also be that once we build the data set, it could be used for analysis A, B, C, and D, different themes. So in that case you would be a little bit broad, but otherwise you would just build it on based on what those goals are. So I hope that is helpful. And Sakib asks an interesting question. We can use prefix only when days are not available in the month. So you can do such things within Power Query. I'm not going to go into that detail, but you can do. What you are doing is we are transforming a column. So that means we are taking the value and bluntly adding one hyphen before. But instead of that, what you want to do is, if there is no date, then add one. If there is a date, respect that date. So this kind of a thing is where you are building an if-then condition. If this is there, then do this, otherwise do that. So that kind of a thing can be done from the add column ribbon as well. So in this case, we don't mess with the existing column. We'll introduce a new column and then we'll use that column and we'll discard this old one. So there is multiple ways to do this. You can use the conditional column. This will give you a wizard or a screen where you can build that condition yourself. Or if you are a little bit more adventurous, you can also use the custom column option and write those if conditions yourself within Power Query. So I have got other detailed videos on Power Query on my channel. I highly recommend. This is why I said early on, if you're wondering, there is so much to learn here. What is it that I should focus on as a start? Focus on Power Query, because this seems to be the biggest pain point in data analysis across the spectrum, irrespective of where you are, what organization you are working, what sort of work you do, what industry it is, all of that. We all deal with crap data day in and day out. So learning Power Query means you just have so much more power and liberty to do what you want without being bothered by data that is not exactly in the shape or size that you want. So yeah, definitely learn more, search on Power Query. There's a playlist, everything is there. I'll put more links when I finished the stream and I get some time, I'll add those links in the video description, but feel free to search up and learn Power Query. Okay, we'll come back to more questions later, but for now, let's just move on. Okay, hide this. I see there's more discussion going on, which is good, and big thanks to Adam for answering some of these. It's always fun to have. But it also makes me nervous, like, guy in the cube is here. What am I doing? All right, let's just, so we have got these two. Like I said, we can't map them. So we need to introduce those dimension tables because that will make the modeling process simple. So you can pick any table. I'm just going to use targets as my reference point, but you could also use actuals if that is more accurate one. So I'll right click on targets and then say, so you're looking at targets here, right click, and then say reference. What this will do is it'll give you one more query. This is exactly a copy of the targets, but it doesn't have all the steps. It will just refer to the end point of the target. So if I see here, it's just another targets. So here I'll right click on the table and then salesperson column and then say remove other columns. So only the salesperson is here. And then I'll also right click again and then say remove duplicates. So we'll have a shorter salesperson table, one row per person. Okay. And this table, we can name this as D salesperson. D because it's a dimension. Again, you don't have to follow these kind of conventions. You can call them whatever you want. But from a when you're dealing with lots of tables, it's a good idea to follow some sort of a convention so that you know what each table is. So D salesperson, and then we will repeat this one more time. This time I want to take my actuals. We'll just take the targets, it doesn't matter, and then reference that again, and then we'll keep the month. So right click on the month and then say remove other columns, and then remove duplicates, and then we'll say this is D months. Now here is the problem. We have got 13 rows here, 13 months, like you can see. Oh, that's the shortcut. So you can see there's 13 rows here, 1 to 13. Whereas in the actuals, my date has all the 365. Well, technically some dates are missing because we don't operate on the weekends, but quite a bit more dates than that. So we can't take these dates and map them out. This is because while the transactions or the shipments happen on a daily level, the targets are only at a monthly level. This is also where I said the granularity is different for these things. So we can't map them out unless there is a start of the month as an option. So to get that, we will select the date column in the actuals thing, and then go to add column, date, month, start of the month. So this is how you can add an extra column that is a calculation of the existing column. So in this case, the month column, a date column, and then it will add the start of the month. You can also use this to do some of the other things like number of days in a month or end of the month, etc. Our targets are all anchored to the start of the month, so we can use the start of the month. So we will have start of the month here, and this is the column that we can then use to map out. So I'll name this as month instead of start of the month because that's the same column that we are using here as well. So that's that. I know this might feel a bit rushed simply because I feel like no matter how much you explain these, it will never be enough for a couple of reasons. Number one being this is made up data, so you will not be dealing with Awesome Chocolates data. You will be dealing with your own data sets. So sometimes whatever you're learning, you'll need to take that and then transform that into your world, like the way Power Query transforms the data. So that's why some of these concepts will seem a little bit weird until you start getting into this world and this way of thinking. So don't beat yourself up. It's fine. Like when I started learning Power Query, it took me a good couple of years before even I could do some of these things. I would watch others do it in videos or books, and then I'll be like, what is going on here again? But eventually when I started solving my own problems, then I realized, oh, this is exactly what they were doing back then. So sometimes that light bulb will not light up until you are there in that. So if this is you, that's fine. But those of you who already have similar situations going on and solving this, it all makes sense, then that's all good. So when we finish all of this thing, you want to go to home and then click on close and apply. That'll basically take all these 4 tables, push them into Power BI so we could do the analysis. All right, let's just do that. But before I do, I just want to see if there is any outstanding questions. Daksh says, I don't know if this is me, but I think doing this work is easier. Maybe I'm getting more comfortable there more in Python than exporting the CSV and then using CSV to analyze the data. This is perfect, my friend. I mean, like, if you think Python is faster to do this, by all means use Python. This is why if you go to Power Query, you're not really stuck with these. If you see transform, you can run a Python script right here that will do all these steps for you. So if you want, you could use Python. If you think SQL is better for this, use that. If you think good old pen and paper is good for this, use that. Whatever works for you in your world, use it. It just so happens that many people find programming to be a whole another beast, rather than doing these kind of screen things, because this is where you are clearly seeing the progress from each step, and then you're getting the output, whereas some other people can think at a more different level and then do it. So everybody has their own way to get to the final. The whole point is you have got raw data and you want to analyze it. Sometimes you can't directly analyze it because the data is not in the correct shape. So whatever is the route that you're using, that is fine. Yeah, if you find that, that is fine. I mean, this is exactly how I used to think when I approach new technologies. But nowadays, I don't worry too much. I always think, oh, let me learn this new technology as well, and then start thinking of ways in which I can use it rather than comparing one with another, because then there is no end for us. Rosanna says we can make a calendar table in Power BI instead. Yes, you can make a calendar table using a DAX function. In this case, because the way our data is, we have got daily activity at an actual table, but targets at a monthly level. A calendar table wouldn't really solve our problem because you would not be able to map the calendar table correctly between these two. So this is where it gets a little bit more nuanced. You may still want to have a calendar table because that can give you a little bit more flexibility with some of the other DAX that you do. But purely from a variance analysis, it might be easier if we have a month table, then we just look at it monthly level. All right, we'll hide this. There is more questions here. Akko says, can we have access to this video at the end of training? Yes, you have access to it. This will be there on YouTube, on my channel for some time for sure. And yeah, most of the time I don't bother deleting the live stream or making it unlisted, but sometimes if the content is a little bit too wavering, or if I feel like, oh, I could do a better job of this in another video, I'll take this out and then put a different video, but it will be there. So feel free to watch it at any time as well. Doesn't mean, stop watching now and go back to your day. It simply means stay with me, but if you want to repeat, you always have that option. So once we finish this, let's go and click on close and apply, and boom, these tables will be loaded here, and then you will have all of these listed here. At this stage, we'll quickly go and do a little bit of modeling. So we'll go to the model view, and then you can see that Power BI has kind of connected things, but not all of them. So it connected the person. I'm just gonna put these things there so we can see. So my actuals is here, my targets is there, and it connected the person because it's the column names match, so it's easier for Power BI to see. It wasn't really sure what this month is, so I don't think it bothered. Let's connect this. So take the month, click on it, drag and drop it on the month here. So that will connect the month field on this side. We'll do the same here. That'll connect there. So we have now got a simple data model where I have got my actuals, targets on both sides. In the middle, I have got two really simple dimensions. They don't tell anything. They just give us a way to map these things out so that we can get that many to many taken out and then now have many to one and one to many instead. So now that these things are there, we should be able to answer some of the basic questions. We'll go one question at a time, and in between we'll also look at your questions in the chat so that it feels a little bit more interactive and fun. I'm also going to make sure that I'm saving my work, so I'll save this quickly. And Mr. Reddit sure is. Yay, finally got to see all live stream. So happy. Well, welcome here. Thank you. Lyrica says, has Power Query already replaced Python? I don't really think this as replacement. Power Query gives you a different option and flexibility that is otherwise very hard to get with Python kind of a thing, because programming languages often have, you know, it's kind of, I mean, Python has notebook programming, but they all come with a little bit of delayed gratification thing going on. Like you have to write the whole program before you can see the result. So many times it's hard for us to visualize what those 75 steps are needed to get the final data. Of course, you can do notebook style thing, but that is not helpful in real world. You will still have to build the whole program. So what Power Query gives you is it enables people to start thinking about data in a more methodical way and then structure it. But it could also lead to a lot of unnecessary steps and all of that. So yeah, I don't really see them as replacing one another. They're just complementary technologies. They all work well together. So whatever works for you in your situation, you should use it. Yeah, I think this is what Adam has to say. Enjoy, everyone. I have to jump for a meeting. Great work, Chandoo. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for joining me on the stream. It was good to have you field some of these questions. And, I think our audience really loved it because it's coming from you. So people are like, oh, yeah, this is what Adam says. We have to now listen to this. So thank you. And I hope I'll jump and, maybe join one of your streams. It's always when I'm really like 3 a.m. for my time, but I'll try to stay up one of these days or wake up really early. Umesh says, can't we create a calculated column in the actual table as month and then map it with target? Just curious to know. So you can. The problem with that is, I'll show you, because it's sometimes that seems like the obvious thing until you realize it's not so straightforward anymore. So the target table has the month column, but each month is repeated. So the month value is not unique. So here I have got multiple 1st of August 2021s. Same with actuals. In actuals table, my month 1st of August will have multiple values, one for each person in product. So then what happens is on both sides, I have got many August ones. So when I map, I'm creating a many to many relationship. And those relationships are, while Power BI allows them, they are pretty hard to understand and implement and use in real world situations. You don't really know which August one is going where and how all of these things will add up. So this is why purely from an easier comprehension and maintenance perspective, creating an internal in-between table will help you because then you can connect the dots correctly and always make sense. Like I said, some of these are quite theoretical until you solve a real world problem. So if most of you don't have awesome chocolate situation going on, so if it doesn't make sense to you, don't bother. Try to go and solve them in your world, and then you will see why it doesn't work. Then you can always come back and learn more. Okay, so we got the files, we have modeled everything. Now comes the fun part, which is to do some analysis. Like I said, these are the analysis themes. I'm just gonna copy this. Actually, this thing, Control C, and then paste it here. Oh, I can't paste. Oh, well, I can. So these are the analysis themes for us. The reason why I pasted this is because then we don't have to refer to the other file. We can see what those 5 or 6 things that we want to achieve are, and then we'll go and achieve them. along way we will uncover some more things like what DAX is needed to answer some of these and what else we need to do. So I want to see actual performance by product, person and team. So actual performance as in what is the actual numbers looking like for each of them. So I simply used the word performance, but essentially what we are interested is as a business, how much is the sales per each person, how much is the expenditure, and what is the profitability ratio, etc. So we need to do a little bit of measures first. Right click on the actuals table, new measure, and then it will come up with the measure formula here. We'll write some very simple measures because this is not a DAX session, so I don't want to take up too much time getting into nitty-gritties of DAX or anything, but we will have to write some DAX, otherwise we won't be able to do much analysis. So total sales is equal to sum of the sales column in the actuals table. So actual sales, and then enter. That'll be the total sales. We'll apply currency formatting on that, and 0 decimals, so we don't have any decimal points there. So we'll get the total sales. We'll do one more. Total expenses is sum of expenses column, and then again that's also currency with 0 decimals. So when you are creating the measure, you will write the measure name is equal to, and then whatever the DAX function, DAX formula is, an aggregate or calculate or whatever that is, and then you will put that there. Why is it in red color? It's probably because of that. And then once you finish, while the measure is being selected, you can also apply some formatting right away. This way, wherever that measure is placed on the screen, it will take that formatting. So you do both things in one go, so you don't have to go back and forth. We'll do the third measure, which is total profit. This is nothing but sales minus profit. So we already have those two measures. We can reuse them using the square bracket, total sales minus total expenses, so that they come up. If you have never done any of these kind of things before and you're wondering, what is Chandoo really doing here? Why is he doing that? Why does it work? How does it work? And all of that. Then I have got a similar live stream that I did on DAX that was there on the channel, as well as a DAX masterclass video is also there on the channel. So check that one out. Check out Guy in a Cube. Check out other channels as well. They have got plenty of good videos that explain these things so that you can understand a little bit more. There's also books and online articles and everything that you can really do to learn this more. Some of these you want to take it slow, so you don't really watch 200 videos and then do one practice. Every time I do live stream, I keep forgetting to close this Epic Games, and then they send out a notification just as the live stream is happening, like, stop the stream and go and play something. All right, so that's those are the measures, and you can always learn, like I said, there's things there in the videos, so check that out, and I'll put some resources anyway. So let's go and do the performance analysis by person, product and team. So we can go here. Let's just look at what is happening by our teams. So I'll put the visual here. We're going to use a column chart and take the team into x-axis, and then let's just see what total sales are. So this is how each team is doing. You can see 8 million is the highest for the Yummies team, 7.8 million. And then this is how they come up. Well, this is good. Normally, the default colors in Power BI are like blue. In my other file, what I have done is I've even changed the color theme a little bit. So I'll show you quickly how to get to different colors and all of that very quickly, because sometimes you're not happy with this blue color and you want to go with something else. You don't have to individually muck around with these things. You can go to the view ribbon, and they have got some excellent themes here. So I went with the twilight theme. It looked a little bit toned down, and then The other thing that I did is this text is too small, especially for my live stream, because the screen kind of sometimes is hard to read. So I wanted these numbers and everything to blow up. So what I did is from here, you can also use the customize current theme option and text. There's a warning that shows up saying update the theme, but once you update, and then you can say default size is 16 points, 18, 32, and then we'll just apply that so that the text is also increased in one go. So this is a real simple trick that you can use to either pick one of the themes or customize them for your corporate colors or your report needs or your audience preferences and all of that very quickly. You don't have to do individually. Once you do it, it kind of changes across the board for all the pages and everything. Okay, so that's total sales. Let's just see how the profits look. I'll add same thing into this. It's stacking sales on top of profit. This is not correct. So I'll change the chart type from stack to cluster so that we can see sales and profit in one picture like that. While we are looking at that, let's just see what is there as questions. Sakib says, I have one issue in my data. One column has number data type, but after some rows, there are some rows with hash NA, and then Power BI is showing an error. How can I transform that? So within Power Query, when you are transforming the data, if a column has errors, you can always right click on the column and then say remove errors or replace errors. So use whatever option you want to either get rid of the errors or put them as 0 using those options. Abu Tala says, which one is better for creating a different table for DAX or defining it in the same table? It doesn't really matter. It's just a cosmetic thing. Some people prefer having all their measures in one table simply because it's easier to look. I don't bother with that. I just make them in the right table. That way I know where to look. But yeah, it's up to you, whatever you want. There is no performance issues or anything as far as I know. Suraj says, I think you have asked this question multiple times, Suraj. One thing that I forgot to mention when we started this live stream is please don't repeat your questions. You are just spamming the chat window and it's of no help for anybody. So if you have already asked a question and I didn't get back to you, it either means I don't want to answer that or I have not seen it. In either case, please don't repeat it. It doesn't matter simply because if I go through all these 350 or 500 messages, then I wouldn't be able to do anything on the screen. But the question is Power BI superior to Tableau? I don't know. I don't really know. Whatever works for you, do it. They both are very good software. That's all I can say. So if you're finding more jobs with Tableau, go and learn it. If you're finding more jobs with Power BI, go learn it. It's many times we always think it's either or, like, I drink coffee or I drink tea. That only works for eating or doing things. With learning, there is no either or option. It's always this and this and this, like that. So you learn whatever you need to learn today. Once you know Tableau, you don't have to learn it again. Go and learn Power BI. You have got all this time. So it's not either or, it's always and. So think like that. That way you are growing, you are improving your skills, you're improving your resume. And you're also not wasting time thinking this or that. You're just thinking, what am I going to do first? And then do that, then learn the other ones. Lyrica says, could we use the same columns instead of creating measures? If yes, does the use of columns increase the time of calculations? Technically, it doesn't matter. As for simple things like sums, the calculation time should be same irrespective of whether you use implicit or explicit measures, because the logic is all same. The reason why we use these kind of measures is if I'm using existing columns, I can only do either total sales or total expenses. But how am I going to do total profit? there's no way we can get that. So we do need measures so that we can go A minus B or do calculations and all of that. So this is where the measures are really important, because they will give you so much more flexibility and power to do awesome things with your data. So this is why I highly encourage you to learn the measures. Using existing ones will not get you very far. Most of the time, it's quite rudimentary that, nobody really asks that question. They are always ask questions like, what is our profit percentage? And that's impossible to calculate with existing columns alone. All right. So that's our first question, which is actual performance by product, person, or team. Right now I'm looking at by team, but we could hypothetically have a similar thing for a product also. So for example, this is all the products. If I add a slicer here and put product there, I'm seeing all the products, and then I can kind of select what is happening for a specific product. So as soon as I click, I'll see how that product is doing. So that's really that question. Even though I just said all of these, if you answer one, then you can kind of do similar graphs or different graphs and do that. Let's do the variance analysis, because that's a little bit more fun, and it kind of really capitalizes on our two tables, actual and budget and target, and then compares both of them. So to get this, we have got total sales, total expenses here. This is another thing that whether you have noticed or not, but if you go to the targets, we only have target amount. So we only have target on the sales. We don't have a target by expenses, or we don't have a target by profit or anything. You're supposed to sell this much. We don't really say how much you should have spent as an expenditure to get that sale. So we can only do target variance analysis at an overall sales level. So let's, I'll call this Q1, and then we'll add another page. And here we can go to targets. We'll first add a measure here, total target equal to sum of target column. And then this is also in currency 0 decimals. So we have got a target value, we have got an actual sales value. I can do a variance somewhere. I can do it in either table, it doesn't really matter. So we'll write a new measure here, which is variance, and this is equal to actual minus target. That's the variance definition. So sales minus target. So the variance is now defined, and let's just see, when you're seeing the variance on the visuals, you should see it only at the level where it makes sense. So that means by person or person month or one of those, because those are the only things that kind of map out. We can't see it by product because we don't have any targets at a product level. We only have by person and month. So we will add a chart like this. We'll start with that, but ideally for this kind of a thing, a table would be a lot better, but this is more visual. So here on the thing, and when you're using the field for this, the field should come from the dimension, because otherwise it doesn't really map out correctly. So D salesperson goes into x-axis, and then we can take directly all of these things or variance itself. I'm going to add total sales here. You can see that is how individual sales are. Total target here, that's how their targets look like. And then we can add the variance also. So we can see positive and negative variances. So this is how individuals do. I'm going to take out these things so we can look at the variance. So this is my variance by individuals. So for example, Gunnar has a very high positive variance, meaning he exceeded the target. Whereas some of these things like Adria, Kelsey, Hussein, they all have negative variances, which means they have not met the target. Now this data is for the entire 13 months. But if I now add a context of month, like either filtering it or slicing it or putting it on the visual, then we can see how the performance was on a monthly basis as well. We'll do that later, but this is the main thing. So now our measure variance is cutting through all these four tables, technically three tables, to produce this kind of an outcome for us, so that we can see who have met their targets and exceeded and who have not exceeded. So this is the important bit. Let's see what is going on in the chat. All right, some questions are there, but it looks like, they're all kind of connected to what else is going on, so nothing else important. But yeah, feel free to put any questions you have. I'll be happy to help you out. Anyhow, we got the variance analysis done, and we are looking at variance in absolute values like dollars. But a good practice is, for example, someone here has a very small amount of variance, 14,000, and you might think, oh, Kane hasn't done as goodly. But if their target is also very small, then from that target, 14,000 would be a very higher variance. So they have actually got and exceeded their variance by 100% or something. So doing it in a percentage will give you a better perspective of this data rather than doing it in dollars. So a variance percentage would be a good addition to what we are trying to do. So we'll do a variance percentage, and this is equal to variance, square bracket variance, divide by total target. Now here we are dividing directly, but normally when you do these, sometimes you can get into some weird divide by zero situations. So it's a good idea to not use the division, rather than use the divide function. This will protect you from such errors on the screen level. So numerator is variance, and then the denominator is total target. So once we set that up, we'll have that, and then we will apply a percentage formatting on this with 1 decimal. And I'm gonna visualize this here in a different page. This way we can actually see what is going on in a more cleaner level. So we'll make a table visual, and then this table I'm gonna put my salesperson, their total sales, variance and variance percentage, so we can see how things are happening at an individual level. And then you can apply a sort order. For example, Gunnar has a very high variance percentage. Also, he does have a very high variance values, and then like that, it'll give you that picture. You can see what is happening at an overall level. A good way to visualize this data, especially with tables, is tables are purely numbers, so sometimes they look a little bit dull compared to a graph like this. So you can also select this, go to variance percentage column or variance, whichever you want, expand that with that arrow, and then add a conditional formatting data bar. And then if you just click OK, now you will get a data bar like that. The positive one is blue color, but the negative one is dull blue color, so it's not visible that much. So I'm just going to edit that one quickly. Data bar, and then we can just pick a different color. So let's go with this, so that the data bar comes up nicely, and then it adds a little bit of visualization to the data, and everything is still working. When you sort, you can see, quickly spot the ones that have very high negative or positive variances across. All right. Umesh says, how we shown y-axis values as negative because it's shown positive in variance. Here you mean, yeah, this is because they, in this case, they have got more target than the actual. So because we are subtracting, the y-axis automatically comes up as negative. I hope that that was that, or I'm not really sure. I want to give a shout out to Claire and others for kind of fielding some of the questions and answering them. Thank you, Claire. How to have target line invariance by salesperson, Kenil? That's a good question. So let's try that. I have not really thought about that when I'm building this, but it should be fairly straightforward. So we'll make a column. In fact, you want to, because it's a line and a column kind of a thing, you can make a stacked line chart kind of a thing. This combination chart, the one below, line and stacked column chart, and then x-axis would have my person, column will be total sales, and the line would be total target. So you'll get something like this. I don't recommend making this kind of a chart because it has no meaning. The columns can be read in individual context, but when you see a line, you always see a pattern. You think there is some sort of a trend going on, but the line has no meaning simply because it's connecting one person to another. And the shape of the line will change if I sort by something else. Like if I sort by target, I'll see the line going down because this person has a very high target. But like I said, that line has no meaning. So you don't want to do this until you have got a time on the axis. So instead of person, if I take out person and then put month there, and then, you know, just go here. So this is how our total sales and targets have looked over a period of time. This looks weird, isn't it? Oh, this is because, yeah. So now from August to August, we had a very high sales in the 20. Oh, wait a sec. Yeah, we had a very high sales in this August, but previously, you know, yes, Awesome Chocolates is growing, so obviously we are getting more sales, but so is our targets have changed. So this line has a meaning because it kind of tells you the story of how the targets have changed over time, whereas the earlier chart is kind of misleading. It doesn't tell any good story because the line connects one person to another. So you want to be mindful about connecting things by a line unless they have a real meaning behind that. All right, so those are a little bit around the question number 2. And then let's just see what is the third one, which is who has most variance in each month. So to do this, we can kind of use the table here, but we'll build another table just for fun so we can kind of get a sense of what is going on. So here, because we have a month, I'm going to add month there. Whenever you put a month, Power BI will add a hierarchy, so it shows year, quarter, month, and day. We don't have any daily data. We don't have any quarter. I mean, we do have, but it's not relevant. So I'll take out those. So we only have year, month. Or you can also click and then just say, show me the data as it is. So don't give me the hierarchy. So it will give you all the 13 data points. And then we want to see for each of these combinations. So month and salesperson. I'll take out that message. Let's add the variance. So this is how the individual's monthly variance is looking like. So the values are all over the place, but that's what it is. So who has the highest variance? So obviously we are looking for highest positive, let's just say. You can kind of sort it and then see, for example, Gunnar had a very good month in October 2021, and that's probably why he has got a very high variance. and things are looking good, and sort it at that level. But this is kind of not exactly answering that question. That question was who has most variance in each month. So we're not really asking across all the months, but in each month. So maybe if I sort by month first, and then I think if we hold down control, you can sort by two values, or maybe it's probably shift, I think. Yeah, so we now have a month and a variance sort in place. So within each month, the highest value is on the top. So we have got August 2021 Dennison, and then you can go to September Kelsey, October Gunnar, like that. You can see this kind of a thing. It doesn't still give you, I mean, it gives you the answer, but it doesn't really give it in a way that is more easy to read, because if I'm interested in this, then I wouldn't really want to see anyone else. I just want to see Dennison's name and not any of these other people in that month. So this is where you can either develop a little bit more DAX or use some of the filters kind of a thing. So my go-to choice in these kind of situations is I try to do it with filters as much as possible. But if the filter option is too confusing or too complicated to maintain, then I'll go and do the DAX, simply because writing some of these kind of things, while the problem is easy, the DAX can get a lot confusing, and it can it can take up significant amount of time depending on how good your DAX understanding is and all of that. So let's try the filter option first. If it doesn't work, then we'll ignore the problem and we'll move on to the next one, simply because the DAX might require explaining more things than necessary. So we want to see all the months. So month should be all, and then salesperson is all, where it says, I'm gonna try top N. So I want to see the top one by variance and then apply. So when I put this top one by variance, what I was thinking is, so this is where it gets a little confusing, but essentially I said I want to see the top one salesperson by variance. So I was thinking, because month is all, so it will show me for each month who the top one is. This is how in my mind this should be working. But instead what it did is it looked at the best salesperson with highest variance, which is Gunnar, and then for Gunnar it gave the monthly breakdown. So all the months how much Gunnar did. So it didn't really answer the question that we are asking for. It gave us a completely different answer, which is, oh, Gunnar has highest variance, so this is how it breaks up across the months. So not exactly what we are looking for. This is what I meant when I said sometimes you may have to use a little bit of DAX to answer this kind of thing. So I'll leave that to you as a little bit of puzzle. It might be a not a more straightforward one to crack initially, but you can always try and then put comments or discuss if you're having some struggle with that later on. Caribou asks, how do you rotate x-axis labels? So these labels, they are not rotated. How do we rotate this? This is one of the things with Power BI is while it is a very decent software for visualizing data, it doesn't have as much customization options or as many flexible things to work with data as Excel does. So I'm afraid the rotation thing is kind of still not available. So if I see x-axis, I don't have an option to customize the axis labels or tell Power BI how often I want those labels. It kind of comes up with its own thing. So there is no no option here, or force it to print it horizontally or something. So these are currently the product limitations. Eventually, hopefully, they will start adding those things. But yeah, if I'm not happy with these kind of rotated labels, so the moment I see this, I'll try to go and do it in a different visual, like something like that, so that at least the label is visible. Or I'll use a different option like a table, because then it's a lot more pleasant and easy to read and gives more detail. So yeah, current state of visuals in Power BI could use a lot more polish. They're nowhere near as good as Excel, or definitely not as good as what we could get with R or Python or other programming languages. So, but it's an evolving space. So eventually things will start to look better in 2 months or 6 months or 12 months. Who knows? Wasim says, what is the calculate function in DAX? I'm not able to understand properly in one go. Can you please explain? I would love to explain. It's just that I have got many videos on the channel that go into great detail about calculate and DAX and all of that. Sometimes it's hard to understand or explain just one function in isolation without giving you all the underlying nuts and bolts. So my recommendation for those of you who is trying to understand tax a little bit more, set aside an hour or two, watch those videos, take some notes, practice. You will really understand and appreciate it. It all bases on the same awesome chocolates data, so you don't have to learn about new data. But in that video, I go into great detail of what DAX really is, how various components of it to really work, and where calculate comes into picture, where filter comes into picture, and all of that. So definitely worth checking that one out. Tex Aurav says, how to show negative variance with a negative sign like minus. So here in this table, variance is showing up in brackets. But if you want to show in a negative sign, it's a simple matter of selecting the variance measure. We have applied a currency formatting here. Somehow that formatting seems to add the thing here. So I'm gonna try. Unfortunately, okay, let's just go here and then try that there. So if you go to the model view and expand these things, you can see all these measures here. So we can select variance. Right now it is called currency formatting, and I think with currency the default is negative will go into the brackets. So from currency you can switch to custom. You can't do that through the ribbon there because the ribbon doesn't allow you to do that, but you can switch to custom. And yeah, here is the format code that Power BI is using to format it. So you can type a different format code here that you want. You can click on that little learn more, that will take you to an article that explains these codes. But essentially you're looking at not having those brackets there. I know the screen is really small now, but yeah, those brackets will need to be substituted with minus sign, and then that'll basically do that for you. Yeah, it could also be the theme that we are using that is defining some of these things. I'm not really sure how far the themes go in defining the formats or the availabilities, but hopefully that helps. Okay, Saurabh says, if target column is not given, then how we assume it, what is the process? So this is a more relevant thing in many real world things where sometimes you have a target, sometimes you don't have it. So again, a lot depends on what is the accepted norm for something like that. So maybe in your company, you have got a rule that says if target is not there, then you're supposed to do as much as what you did last month. Okay, so that is a default rule. Or you're supposed to do as much as 50,000. There's some rules will be applicable depending on what it is. Or you are supposed to do at least average of what everyone else did or something like that. So depending on what those rules are, you will then go to Power Query and then add those extra steps there. Remember Power Query where we took the target table and then we said unpivot it. So when you unpivot, before you even unpivot, you would see that some months and some names would have blank cells because they don't have a target. So before unpivoting, you would first figure out a way to fill those blank cells using those rules. So either replace them all with the default value like 50,000 or replace them with the previous cell value or do something else. So whatever it is that you do, you can kind of set that up there and then that'll all trickle down here. It's easier to solve the problems upstream rather than downstream in Power BI using DAX. So within DAX, if target is blank, you could kind of write an if condition that says if is blank of target, then 50,000. But that is not a good practice because it also makes it harder for us to do some more complicated things. So you want to move the problem a little further away from you to the upstreams like Power Query, or even go back to the source file and figure out something else there. All right, so those are those. Let's go to the fourth question. Which products have highest profit per box? So this is a little bit not related to the variance analysis, but I thought, it'll give you a flavor of how DAX works and how you can add these kind of things. So we already have profit. We can add a measure, new measure, which is total boxes, and define this as sum of boxes as a number, whole number. So now we have got boxes and profit. I can add a measure that says profit per box divide, and then numerator is profit, denominator is boxes. And then 0, maybe 1 decimal point on that. So we will then have that information, and then I can see for each of our products how much is the profit per box looking like. So we can add a table. In this table we will put product and then boxes, profit per box. So this is how it looks. For example, if I sort by profit, our highest profit comes from dark bytes, and that's how much profit per box. But if I look at by individual box, milk bars gives us one of the highest profit per box, so $23 there. And orange choco has only 40 cents profit per box. So this is like a very low profit amount compared to 23 that we make here. And at an overall level, we make about $10 profit, 10.9 every time we sell a box of chocolates. So you can see that, with simple DAX, we are now able to cut the data in a different way and then see what is going on. And this is an overall level. I can see how that numbers change by a team also. So if I put this kind of a graph here where I'm looking at team and then their profits. So this is how individual teams do. And if I pick on yummies, I can see how within yummies these numbers look. They're highly profitable because when I picked yummies, you can see that from 10.9 we jump to 11.1. So across the board, they're bringing more profit per box, and hence that's there. Delish or Juicies or Temp, and as you click, you will see all the sort order kicking in and changing the list of products and the order and everything. So this opens doors for some really powerful analysis, even with two simple graphs and some really simple measures. None of this is complex. but you can now answer some very interesting questions or spot patterns, and you'll be able to say, oh, this looks good, let's go and investigate that a little bit more. And that brings us to the last one, which is forecast sales for the next 3 months. So again, this I have added because especially in the data analysis or financial budget versus actual kind of a thing, it's good to see how the performance has been, but you may want to see how things are going to look like. Again, big note of disclaimer here, Awesome Chocolates is a made up company. All this data is randomly generated. So I wouldn't trust these forecasts with any real in real world things. But when you have some real world data, the forecasting tends to, I don't want to say works better, because nobody can predict what the future will be, irrespective of how good your models are. But the forecasting tends to be a little bit more meaningful with the real world data than the random data sets. So let's take a look at our sales trend. We'll add a graph here, put the month onto x-axis. Let's just show the month, and then we'll add total sales. So this is how our sales are. As you can clearly see, we have a huge bump in August. We probably did a lot more chocolates, or I made more random data in August than other months. So this itself means the patterning is kind of broken already, and we don't really know what the future holds, whether we'll have a hockey stick pattern or we'll drop back again. But once this is there, you can select this and then go to the analytics tab, this one here. So this is the visual panel where you specify things. This is where you format, and that's where you can add that. And from here you have got forecast and some very interesting things there. So if I add a forecast, it'll add by default for 6 months or something, or 10 months. You can expand this, and then you can say how long you want. We just want for 3 months. And then you can also specify ignore the last. So I'm going to say ignore the last 1 month, and then use a season of 12 months. So seasonality is 12, which means we follow an annual pattern in chocolate sales. For example, around Christmas and Halloween, we sell more candy, but then maybe in the month of March, we don't sell as many chocolates. So if I do this, then even though we have an aberration here, it kind of says August was a different thing, but you can expect things to fall back like that. So that's a little bit of forecasting there. And you can tweak this. The model that Power BI follows is, I think it's a standard algorithm called ETS, exponential time smoothing algorithm, or something like that. It's the same one as what Excel also follows. Like I said, these forecasts are simply based on your data. Whatever data you fed, it's going to forecast based on that. So it has no idea what the real world situation is, and whether there's going to be some crazy demand for almond choco because a YouTuber talked about it, or there was a viral TikTok about it, or something like that. So none of those things are aware to Power BI. But when you are using these ideas to build your work models, you need to start thinking, what other variables will impact my forecast here, and how do I bring them together in order to do the forecasting. And probably this forecast is not how most of that happens. You may want to build a more comprehensive model or something like that, but that's kind of open for you to figure out depending on what your situation is. I do have another video on the channel where I talk about, it was a previous live stream on what if analysis and forecasting with Power BI. So please feel free to watch that, where we take some scenarios for the Awesome Chocolates company, and then I show what happens if our price, we increase our price by 5 cents, or what happens if our input costs go up, or what happens if people buy more chocolate, how all of that is going to change our product sales and all of that. So definitely worth checking out if you are doing this kind of analysis. So yeah, that is a little bit on the data analysis with Power BI. My throat is already itching a little bit because, as I said, I have got seasonal allergies. So I feel hard for me to continuously talk, and it's going on for about an hour and 40 minutes. So let's just look at some of the questions and see what is going on. Feel free to share some other questions now that we finished with the main topic. But I will share a copy of this workbook in the video description, maybe an hour or two after we finish the live stream. I'll go down and stretch my legs and then can come back and upload that. But yeah, you can also download the practice files and repeat this by just watching the video. Okay, let's see what is going on. Sirisha says, how do we export this dashboard to PowerPoint? That's a very good question. One of the things that Power BI recently did is you can now directly put this dashboard live in PowerPoint. So you don't have to export or anything. It's a live thing. You can put it on PowerPoint. You can obviously put it on Teams, which is really awesome. So let's just do a quick demo of that. The first step is you save this. Second step is you publish it. Obviously, without publish, you will not be able to use the PowerPoint embed option. If you don't have publish or you don't have Power BI account, then you can just take some screenshots and put them into PowerPoint. So publish, and then this will basically, what happened here? Yeah, so it'll ask you where you want to publish. I'll just put it on my workspace here. And then we'll say, so the PowerPoint thing, this is the first time I'm doing it. I'm not even sure if it'll work, but I saw some demos online and I thought, oh, this looks interesting. Let's just try this. So, I don't even know where the thing should be. I thought it was somewhere here. Maybe I'm getting confused between my work computer and this computer. Oh, I need to. This probably going to take more time because I need to log into a different account on my PowerPoint than Power BI. I have got a separate account. So, but yeah, you could do that. Give it a try. I'm not going to demo that now because I need to log in and it's going to take a bit more time. Let's talk a bit more generic. Guru Prasad asks, what are the best practices you suggest in general when working in Power BI? Okay, so I mean, there is no specific there are some specific Power BI best practice, but in general, most of the best practice advice stems from same best practice that you would follow when you are developing any data analysis project. So Power BI happens to be one tool, but if you think of Power BI like a hammer or a power drill, there are other tools, right? You have got Tableau, which we could think of that as a saw or something else. So in general, whenever you're working with tools, you would have some best practice, like, you wear gloves, you have protective equipment, you plan, you measure twice before you cut, and all of that. So same rules for any of these tools, which is you plan well, you think about what is it that your audience want and work backwards to figure out what data and what supporting things are needed to facilitate that and all of that. So those are the biggest best practices. So if you are thinking, how do I make best use of Power BI, then the answer really is outside of Power BI, because if you can control those things, that is, you get your good quality requirement, you maintain your data well, you understand exactly what users want and how they want, and then build around that, you set the right expectations, then most of the headache is gone because you're doing good job there. But let's just say all of those are taken care and now you're into the Power BI domain and you're thinking, what is it that I need to be doing inside Power BI to ensure success or whatever. Then comes the fun part of what happens inside Power BI and how do you control it. So within Power BI, this is a classic diagram that I kind of draw every time I explain Power BI, which is we normally think of Power BI as one big thing, but you need to think Power BI as a bunch of things. So I'm gonna yeah, it might be easier if I just draw. So I'm gonna assume that Power BI, we are always thinking about it as one big box, but instead you need to think about Power BI as at least 3 boxes. So the box 1 is called Power Query, and this is where all your data handling, data management happens. Then box 2 is Power Pivot. This is where all the calculations will happen. And box 3 is the visuals. This is where all the development happens for the graphs and interactions and everything. So when you are approaching any new Power BI project, you need to think what goes into each box and then structure it. And anytime you are in doubt, you should move it as far left as possible. So if you are wondering how to do certain thing here, maybe the answer could be here or here, because each box connects to the next one. So your raw data here, so this is just my data, it flows into Power Query, then it flows into Power Pivot, and then it flows into visuals. So and this visual is what my audience are watching. So if I want to do something here, I need to have a solid background here, even better background there, and even better data here. So if the problems are happening here, that means you need to probably push back a little bit further and then see where the problem is and fix it there, or even further higher up. So that's really one good practice, because once you start thinking in this way, then you will see and address all of these in a better fashion. So that's one mental framework that I recommend people to think about when they're working in Power BI, because many times you just think of everything as one place, then it's hard because you can't make a column chart if you don't have sufficient measures or underlying data model or the right data or the right shape of data. So it all kind of goes back. And then, there are lots of smaller best practices and all of that. But another big best practice that you need to think about is what visuals am I using? How am I telling my stories? Because that is another important, that's the final thing, right? That's what everybody sees. So you may want to invest a little bit of time and effort learning storytelling, learning how to make better graphs, figuring out what works and what doesn't work and all of that. I have got this week I posted a video on the channel. I'll quickly pull that up here. Hopefully. So this is called top 5 tips to improve your data viz skills. This was actually a question that someone asked last live stream also. So I put that here as a new video. So check this one out. It talks a little bit more along what you need to do if you want to improve your data visualization skills, which is basically the final output of Power BI. Okay, so let's just see what else is going on. There's a bunch of questions on SQL. Lyrica says, can we use SQL queries in Power BI? Nana says, where to start SQL for beginners? And then a few others probably I missed out earlier. Essentially, you can, again, this all feels like I'm trying to promote more of my channel. You don't have to learn stuff from my channel. You can learn from anywhere. Like we had a discussion earlier also, you don't have to learn SQL, but if you are planning to learn SQL and you want to learn SQL, then you can learn. There's a bunch of videos. The video that I would recommend is there's two videos that I did on SQL on my channel. So this is the Learn SQL for Data Analysis in 1 hour. It's a longer video. If you are somewhat familiar with SQL and now you want to see how SQL should be used for data analysis, then this is the video for you. But if you have never heard about SQL and you're thinking, everybody says SQL, 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 what is this all about? Then I've got another video, it's probably somewhere else on my channel. Just search for SQL and you'll find those two videos. So both of them, one is called SQL Basics, the other one is called SQL Full Course. Watch both of them. It'll give you enough to get started with data analysis. SQL is a big word and it takes years and years of practice before you can be very good at it. So don't think you can learn it in 20 minutes or an hour. If somebody is promising you, will teach you SQL in 2 hours, they're just clickbaiting you. I mean, my video also says learn SQL for data analysis an hour, but that's the hour of actual video content, not really an hour of your time. It could be translated into 3 months of your time. So okay, I feel like I'm missing most questions here, but Siddhant says, does using the master calendar need relation or mapping to be done in PBI? Yeah, obviously, if you have got a calendar table, you will need to map it out correctly in your data model in order to be able to use it for DAX and any calculations. I hope that was sufficient. Again, Sunil Singh, what should we focus on, SQL or Snowflake? Sorry, but I'm not familiar with Snowflake at all. I only briefly know what it is, but that's all. So I can't really comment. But SQL is, again, I could be just making a blunder here, but SQL is a language, whereas Snowflake seems like a technology, and it's probably just a private company also. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, talk to someone who has done both of them, not me. Can you make a video on hands-on project using SQL and Power BI? I don't really know what people mean when they say hands-on project. All these projects are hands-on. Is there any hands-off thing? We are using CSV instead of SQL simply because if I'm using SQL, then how are you going to get access to that SQL server? I have to set up a server, then give you access to it and all of that. So this is where I use Excel files or CSV files because that they are easy to share. So you can connect it and in practice. But everything else after the data comes in is exactly same, irrespective of whether you're using SQL or JSON or web pages or whatever. So yeah, I don't know if because I see some people asking for these. All the projects that I show on my channel are hands-on. Maybe I'm not using the word hands-on in my title, but they are hands-on. So if I'm misinterpreting that, let me know what that is, so we can probably add some videos on those things. Rohit Chandra says, hi Chandoo Anna Bagunara, how to import GPKG file into Power BI? I'm trying to import attribute tables from QGIS into Power BI. What is a GPKG file? I find, I don't want to Google things in the live stream because sometimes you never know what shows up. But yeah, tell me what GPKG is. Is it like a text file or XML or what is it? Taizun says, thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Taizun. I hope you all enjoyed it. How deployment pipeline works in Power BI? This is a good question. I'll probably add a video on some of these, but if you are in a hurry and you want to learn some of the upstream or downstream things, I recommend looking at Guy in a Cube channel. They talk a little bit more about Power BI than I do, and they also have, because they work in Microsoft and with large clients, they're exposed to different types of problems than I do. I work more as a data analyst, so I do actual Power BI report building versus thinking about, setting up pipelines and all of that. So yeah, but I plan to make another video on it because my wife, she works more with those things. So sometimes I get pointers and ideas from her, and I'm planning to have her talk about some of these things in a future video. So put some suggestions in the comments if you have got any around this particular topic. Sanket says, if you have multiple select statements in SP, what it looks like if we can call that SP in Power BI. What is SP? Is it SharePoint? Or obviously it can't be SharePoint because you have to talk about select statements. So some sort of database. Imran Khan says, how important is SQL? I think I talked about this already in the video, so I'm not going to get into that again. How to use Power BI services to get meaningful insights. That's quite generic, but sorry, maybe I should pick questions correctly, read them before I put them on the screen. Okay, this is careful about your time. How to get complete training in Power BI. Ooh, interesting. I'll show you how to get. I have got a Power BI course. Join that. Learn some of the basics on the YouTube channel for free. But if you want to learn a little bit more in a step-by-step fashion, check out the Power BI course. It's a very simple course, and you could probably finish it in a couple of months. The link is in the chat, but also in the video description. Check it out, join the course, and learn. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You can purchase Power BI alone or combine it with my Excel school program and get it. So it's open for enrollment. Go and join. Oh, okay. SP is stored procedures. So now we need to go back to the main question, which is try it. I have never tried calling a stored procedure from Power BI. I've used Power BI to get on to SQL Server and run select statements. Not exactly sure what else we can invoke and where some of these with whether they will work or not. And yeah, I've never done stored procedures. I've used views and queries directly, and that all works fine. So yeah, try it out and let us know in the comments what happens if you call an SP. Yeah, Caribou says you can connect directly to SQL database in Power BI. Yes, that's exactly right. So if you're thinking, how can I use SQL in Power BI? It's really a simple thing. You just go, let's just get this bigger. If it is a SQL server, you say SQL server, or if it is some other database, keep clicking on the same thing. Get data, more, and then type the data source. So for example, I want to connect to MySQL. I'll just type MySQL. MySQL database comes up, connect, and then follow the rest of it. Server and the database. I have got a local host server, so if I want, I can connect. I'll show this in a video, in another video on my channel, how this can be done. But this process is fairly straightforward. Whatever is your server, you specify that and you specify the database. You can also write a query here directly. You don't have to choose, and then that's pretty much it. Everything else after that, once the data comes, is exactly same as what we have done now. Philip says, great job today. The session was congested with great insight. That's a good one. Yeah, I think as the day progressed, my nose got more congested. This is because I feel like as it dawns, somehow I'm getting more infected. So when I started, it's 5 a.m. It's already 7 now. I can see sunlight outside. So yeah, my nose is getting even more blocked. But hopefully you all enjoyed. the session. And yeah, one says, hi Chandu, for me the most difficult thing in Power BI is time management. I mean, YTD calculations, comparing YTD of one day. Do you have any video to learn about that? I don't think I talked much about that in the channel. Probably check the DAX video, that might be helpful. But I do have quite an extensive coverage of time intelligence calculations in my course. Simply because some of these things are like too technical and too detailed, and I feel like anytime a video is a little bit too technical, uh, it is probably better handled in a course environment than in a YouTube environment, simply because it doesn't perform well on the YouTube channel. And what happens is, when I'm running my YouTube channel, my motivation is obviously I want people to be awesome, but I also want to produce content that is resonating with larger audience than smaller. Like if it is only helping 5 people, I would rather write a blog article than make a YouTube video about it, because each video takes hours and hours of work and months of planning. So if I'm spending 3 months planning and thinking and preparing the data sets and all of that, and the video gets 6 views, it kind of hurts me a little bit, like, oh, all of this for nothing. Not that the views matter, I'm not really after views or anything. It's just that I would feel more satisfied as a teacher if more people sat in the class and learned from me. So that's kind of where I feel some of the more technical topics, I deal with them in the course anyway, and people benefit from it. They, all of that. So feel free to go for the course if you want to learn some of these things. You can also purchase a book. I put my DAX recommendation books in the video link later, but I've talked about them in many other videos as well. Okay, so we got a response on GKPG. The geo package file which stores layer data from QGIS. Did enterprise do? Okay. Yeah, I never worked with geo package files, but irrespective of what the extension is, if the data internal is like a text file or a JSON or a XML, then you can kind of open any file in Power BI and then ask Power BI to read it as a JSON file. So for example, let's do some very quick and silly example here. I'm gonna go to my computer and take a targets file, Control C, Control V, copy it, and then rename it as targets.gkpg. So now it's a GKPG file, and like you can see here, this targets.gkpg, and then let's just try to load it up here, get data from file, and then instead of text we'll say all files, and then get this file here. So this will be read as a CSV file, because it, even though whatever that extension is, it's thinking, oh, it looks like a comma separated file, I'm going to read it like that. But you can go to transform data and then go to the source step, edit it, and here open the file as CSV. You can say what the actual underlying format is. So usually the formats tend to be one of these two. If it's some really weird format with their own custom coding, then you probably won't be able to read it like that. You can open it as a text file and then do whatever else you need to do, but that you're probably better off at that stage to use something like Python rather than or R scripts rather than Power BI, because they might give you more flexibility. if I'm good in SQL, Excel, Power BI, is it good enough to apply for junior data analyst? Is learning Python data visualization library important? Again, it all depends on what the organizations are asking. Sometimes they tend to over ask rather than under ask. So for example, you might just be doing Excel data analysis for all you know, but in the job ad they tend to over specify as a rule, simply because if the skills are needed at a later point, then they are safe by saying, we did hire someone who is ready for that, because the world is always changing. So yeah, but I think if you're strong in one or two of these areas, that will put you in a better position than learning all of them. So I do have a video on the channel where I review job ads and kind of give you an overview of what companies are expecting, what is it that you would do. So feel free to check that video. It might give you some ideas. It doesn't talk about junior data analysts, but it does give you some perspective. Yeah. All right. I am really, my throat is super itchy now. I don't want to spend more time talking. But I hope you all enjoyed the live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in from wherever in the world you are. Some of our regulars are back, but I saw quite a few new names as well. So it was all good. Good to have you all on the stream. Thank you so much. And I'll catch you again at the end of October with another topic. If you do have any topic suggestions or any concepts that you want to further explain, put a comment there. I'll try my best. If I know the concept, I'll try to add another video on those things or point you to the videos that are already there. So that's that. And once again, I want to share the good news that we do now have 300,000 subscribers on the channel. So we crossed that mark when I was sleeping last night. So I woke up to that good news. So it was good to have that. And thank you, everyone. And yeah, I'll catch you again somewhere else. Oh, one more thing. I recently launched a Telugu channel as well as an addendum to the main channel. The Telugu channel is where I explain Excel and eventually Power BI and SQL all in Telugu. So right now it only has 3 videos, but every week I'm adding a video there. So if you are from one of the Telugu speaking states or you can understand Telugu, feel free to look it up. It's called Chandoo in Telugu, and subscribe to that channel where there's Telugu videos. That's all for now. Thank you so much. You all have a lovely weekend, and yeah, we'll catch you again somewhere else. Bye bye.